You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 373, The Bad Batch Decommissioned. We're going to break down this most recent episode of The Bad Batch. We're now 6 episodes into season 1. And for an episode that, again, was pretty good, had a little teaser there at the very end that really got a lot of people talking this week. And we're going to spend some time talking about it today and just a little bit later tonight as well. But to help me get through all the nitty gritty here is Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to now your second show in a row tonight. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, man. It's a triple header, so let's just keep it rolling all night long.
We just recorded the From a Certain Point of View with Josh Imperial Moonwalker from Film Appraisers. We've got this show now that we'll knock out, and then afterwards we're going to record the Patreon content, the Patreon exclusive content, and we'll talk about that here in just 1 minute. But hey, before we do, let's quickly talk about. I got one announcement that I wanted to make. Pretty exciting stuff. We have a new show coming to the program here on Earglue Media onto the network, and it's going to be a Scream podcast. This is going to be hosted by a gentleman by the name of Ryan C. Showers. If you've listened to the Petticoats and Poppies podcast, he was on episode, I think, 13 on that one. Right. He's been on that before, but it's going to be focused around Scream, and I'll just kind of pull up the logo because I don't have a really good way. I was going to save one, and we just ran out of time, but it's going to be a series of talking about all the movies, anything that's Scream related. Scream 5 is coming out, I think, in January of next year.
Right.
And so, trust me, I've talked to Ryan about this. I know what he knows about Scream, and it's going to be awesome. He's got all these topics. They're going to be breaking down things and working on intros and getting merch and the whole 9 yards. But we couldn't be more excited to have this newest addition to the Earglue Media Network. And I know, Jonesy, you've got some website work that you guys are working on right now as well.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to get them all set up. So whenever he's ready to go live, we'll have links out there for everyone to pull up, and we'll spread the word.
Yeah. And I think we've got this show's going to be out. We're shooting for mid-June, so in about 2 weeks' time, maybe a little bit less, depending how soon we can get it recorded and edited. And he's shooting for like 20 to 40 minutes per episode, once every 2 weeks. So if Scream is a thing for you, and I know it is for a lot of folks, I mean, they're really pretty solid movies. I have very fond memories of the first one because it was so vastly different than a lot of the horror movies, and it kind of really put the horror movies on its head. And there's been a lot of that's been done since there. But yeah, look for that here in about 2 weeks, and we'll probably come back with more information once that's going. But yeah, just a quick announcement, let you guys know that we've got a new show coming onto the network. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Okay. Let's see. Also, we've got some new Patreon subscribers that we want to acknowledge. Jonesy, do you want to give them a shout out real quick?
I would if I had them up.
Oh, okay. Well, I will do it then.
I got it here. I just
Okay.
did something wrong. I was still on the Fact Boy stuff. That's my bad. Yeah. So we had Brad Comer came in with a nice pledge, and then we had another person who went from a lower tier up to a higher tier, and that was Ashit Kacharian. He's actually been with us for a while, so Ashit, thanks for upping your pledge there. So we've actually had quite a bit of activity around that. It's been really exciting to see people interested in the extra content and a little bit deeper dives on some things. And I know you and I have been talking about what to do with War of the Bounty Hunters, because that was a pretty exciting one. So all sorts of things that we're working on and talking about and bringing those to you guys. So head over to patreon.com/thecantinacast if you want to throw a couple coins over to us. And again, everything we bring in goes right back into the show. So we don't make anything off this. We really just want to produce the best content we can, and hopefully a variety of that kind of content too, that kind of meets a bunch of different, I don't know, heck, it just meets your and my needs, right? Because you and I have a lot of different tastes. It's never just the movies, right? It's never just the TV shows. There's a lot of things that we like to consume. So we hope that you guys can enjoy some of that with us.
Yeah, no, and we're pretty excited. We've got a number of things that we're still working on. We've got a kind of tease this now. we've got a new Patreon intro that Jonesy burned the midnight oil on earlier this week and got cranked out, which is pretty fun and exciting. So we've got that coming up. But in terms of content, yeah, we've got a number of things. I think we want to get an intro created first, and we got that out of the way. So now we're going to start jumping into the comic books and the War of Bounty Hunters comic you mentioned there. There's some short stories and stuff that we want to get into as well. So all that will be available to anybody that's over the the Cantina After Dark pricing, which I think is like $2 or more. You get all that as well. So. But we'll talk about that here in just one second in terms of what we're going to do for this episode. But let's get into Decommissioned because um, I don't think they've had a bad episode yet. I think they've been 6 or 6 in terms of the quality. But I got to say, like, one of the things out of the gate for me was the writing with this one. I thought it was like really, really good. There was some really good moments in there. Some really funny moments. The dialogue itself was good. The pacing, and it's so funny. I wanted to pull this up, and I didn't get a chance to today. But there was I saw somebody post in Twitter. It was one of the Lucasfilm animation designers was talking about how much time and effort they went into this episode because at the very end where they're in the factory and all the just going back and forth. And if you look at it visually, there's just so much to take in, and that this was like a huge milestone for them in animation for Lucasfilm animation. But all of that is a byproduct of the writing, right? The writing dictates where the scenes are going to go, and they've got to turn that into something graphically that we enjoy. But kudos to Amanda Rose Munoz, who is the writer for this episode. She did Star Wars Rebels. She did some, what was it? Script coordinator for Rebels for 10 episodes,
Right.
supervisor on the Bad Batch for all 6 so far. And she's been, she did 4 Clone Wars episodes, Resistance, 34 episodes, and then she did 33 episodes of Star Wars Rebels as a script supervisor. So she knows what she's doing. This is the first one I think that she's been credited for as the actual writer. But what were your thoughts kind of overall with this episode, Jonesy?
It was good. I mean, yeah, it was something. Again, we've really not had a filler type of episode yet, and I think this is another one where we get reintroduced to some characters we knew already, and it was good to see them still staying true to who they were and just a next evolution of where they're at in their journey as well. But no, this was really cool. The lighting in this episode was really great because they're in this droid factory, of course, and so it was a really there's a lot of intense moments actually in this one. I was a bit surprised that
Mm-hmm.
and we finally get to see Omega kind of truly feel like something like Hunter's not going to get to her type of thing. That suspense and a lot of other things starting to take place, right? So it's we're starting to get some of that momentum where we know things are about to start happening. Some of the wheels are going to start falling off in some ways, but maybe some other things might be improving too. And maybe we've got some allies. And what's an episode without a really great speculation type of thing at the very end of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, really good writing though on this one. It was actually very amusing to watch. The first part of it in particular, when they're at Sid's place, is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. And then just the blocking, right? I called it choreography, but it's not really choreography because that's dancing, but it's more about the blocking, especially when they're in the factory, where, they have the head, they don't have the head, she's stuck, if somebody comes down. I mean, the whole, just visualizing all that, I don't know, it was really cool to kind of see it play out the way it did. Yeah, again, kudos to Munoz for what she did on that episode.
But I
And
think one of the things that actually the episode, I will talk about it, but it actually felt like there were just waves after waves after waves of security droids, right?
hmm
And they just couldn't. Usually in some of these shows, they stop after a little bit of time, but this was like, man, they just kept kind of rolling in. So you're just like, man, this is really really crazy.
Yeah.
How are they going to get out of this type of thing? So
Yeah,
I thought
no,
that was really well done. Really suspenseful in a lot of different ways.
right. Yeah, they would cut to it, like cut to this outside shot, and you would see the next wave coming in, which you're like, holy cow, this is not going to let up. And yeah, added to the suspense and
What I
drama
liked,
there.
they'd even pan back just a little bit, and you'd see them all coming through different doors on each side too.
hmm
So you're just getting all these different perspectives, and it really helped. It really helped frame the scene up quite a bit for us.
Yeah, that was we used to call that the Zerg rush back in the day of
Right.
old school PC gaming for
That's
you
right.
young whippersnappers out there. Okay. In this episode, I think, and I don't know, I don't want to keep this going like week after week, but I'm starting to really hyper focus on who showed up and who didn't in these episodes because we've been introduced to a lot of characters. Some we've seen on screen as part of the show's formal. Some we know are about to come. Some they've alluded to. Some we've made up in our head as headcanon. But in this episode, we didn't get Rex, so still waiting on that one. No Crosshair. This is now the second episode where we've not had him. There was a mention, I think, in the last episode, but he's not been around. So okay. And then we got nothing on Omega's powers this episode. Maybe, I don't know. Well, I'll let you chime in on that one. Not really a whole lot about the chips. I mean, that seemed like it wasn't part of the focus of this episode. We got that Wrecker moment there at the very end. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, and then certainly nothing from the Kaminoans. That we know they're out. Same thing with Tarkin. I just kind of lumped those guys all together. Didn't really see them in there as well, but.
Yeah.
But Jonesy, what'd you think about? Sorry. And then as far as what came back, and I want your thoughts on all this. Wrecker's head injury. We talked about that one. And then the Martez sisters, which I was not expecting at all.
Right.
And we'll get into them in just a little bit. But
a lot of people are probably like, "Who?"
Yeah, right. But what did you think about who showed up and who did not?
Yeah, I think with Crosser, I think we did get a reference this time because I think Wrecker he had to go take basically Eyes in the Sky.
Oh yeah,
type of
he was a
thing.
reference, but we didn't get to see him though, and so we don't know
Right.
what he's doing. Is I guess sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we miss him, right? We want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
We're interested, but it doesn't mean that it's not a bad thing for have some breathing room and space in some of these topics. I think that's what we're seeing is they're going to use all 16 episodes in a really fluid kind of way. This very organic type of approach to it, to where they'll have they don't need to rush the story to get all the way through it. And they're going to tell a variety of things, and I think that's really good. I want to see a bit of a stretched out path over the course of several months or something like that for the crew. So I think those are good things. I mean, we're getting antsy for Rex, right? Because we're like, okay, there's a chance he could come up here, but maybe every episode there's a chance he can come up because we don't know where he's going. I was actually really happy to see them still hanging out at Sid's place, right? I thought this was
one and done.
well,
Or
yeah,
they'd
we
come
were
back to it later.
yeah, we weren't sure if it would be one and done, but it makes
Yeah.
sense that they're just hanging out now and they've got a place to crash effectively, right? And but yeah, I mean, I'm ready for some of those characters to come back. I'm ready to get back on the Imperial side of things and see what's happening over there. But at the same time, they're doing well with keeping our guys busy in kind of an interesting way. And yeah, we'll talk about. I hesitate to even keep calling it Omega's powers. I just think of more of like abilities, I guess. What is it that she's what traits will she exhibit type of thing rather than powers.
No,
I
that
think
makes
powers.
sense.
I think of like the force and things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe she's a level 22 mage or something. She's
Magic missile.
with
No,
crit-
it's a good point of clarification. I would agree. It's I say powers, and I don't know because
well,
I'm a
it depends on where you're at,
teenager.
though, right? Yeah, it's your
Right.
perspective and where you want them to go to, right? So
Right. I mean, if she's force sensitive, then okay, then it's a power, right? Everything could
Yeah.
be considered a power. But if she's not, then yeah, it is just an ability. She's an enhanced clone, and she's got abilities. So,
Right.
all right, fine. I won't call them powers until proven otherwise. But yeah, I would like the Martez sisters. What are your thoughts there? Like, I saw a lot of people, and we covered those episodes, and I didn't get a chance to go back and listen. I didn't have an unfavorable opinion of them as far as I remember. I mean, I didn't think they were like amazing or anything like that, but I didn't hate them and I didn't dislike them in any way. But I saw a lot of folks today or last couple days just kind of posting about, hey, they're back and I like them more than I did before, or they didn't annoy me as much as they did before. But I don't know. I guess I wasn't in that group when they first came out. But what did you think on their return and reflecting back on what we saw in season 7?
yeah, I think with season 7, I mean, I think it was just a bit uninspiring for me now, but I have a better appreciation for that episode for those episodes now
Mm-hmm.
with this one because I think you see the similarities between how, especially with Trace, right, with how Trace interacted with Ahsoka and with how Trace interacted with Omega in this, and you start to see that the heart in that character still come out. And for those who may not be quite as aware of the Martez sisters, so they showed up in the last season, the true last season of the Clone Wars, right? Those first few episodes with Ahsoka on the run, and kind of their backstory is they're from level 1313 on Coruscant, where they grew up, and the Jedi were there was some fight or whatever going on, and they a speeder crashed into their apartment and basically killed their parents. Right? So that's kind of their backstory a bit, why they're orphans. And so Rafa is always the one that's been taking care of Trace. Trace is the kind of she's the moral compass of sorts. She's got the big heart. She doesn't approve always of what Rafa is doing, and we see that in this episode, right? Rafa seems to be the one doing the wheeling and dealing,
Hmm.
and Trace is just a bit more lighthearted about things. But Trace has a certain appreciation for Rafa that she's really doing whatever it takes to help them survive. So just I thought it was just important just to get a quick grounding there because I know not everybody has necessarily watched all of the last season of the Clone Wars there.
Yeah. No,
But
thanks actually for that.
yeah, so I like the characters. I mean, I think they're a good counterpoint to one another, and I think the way that they did this episode, and of course we'll talk about the very end. It's really curious, but I think it really brought. They're still true to character. I mean, they're still doing this, and maybe Trace is softening a bit on the moral side of things, but at the end of the day, she still makes the right decision, and so I liked them. I thought they brought something to this episode, and actually, my favorite part of this was just the interactions with Rafa and Hunter. It was just great. They
Yes.
were just a lot of fun to watch, and you get a couple of really, again, you talk about the writing, some of those really good moments, especially at the end when after a saving of Omega there by Trace.
Yeah.
And yeah, good exchange with Hunter there. But yeah, so I thought they were fine. I definitely didn't have a problem with it. I thought they actually enhanced the episode quite a bit. Again,
I think everybody's. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say I think everybody's shipped Wrecker and Rafa, and I'm like I've already shipped Rafa and Hunter, so
Right.
one of them's gonna pan out, and it probably won't be mine. But
That was a great line though. I like him.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, we all do, right? So, but okay. So, and then before we start, kind of with the beginning here, just a quick reminder for anybody that's on the Canteen After Dark or higher Patreon amount. You guys are going to get a bonus episode. In this week's bonus episode, although we are going to talk about it, we'll go in much more depth later on. It is going to be the shoulder, right? The shoulder that shook the world, if you will.
No, tell them the title you came up with.
I called it Shouldering the Speculation. Huh? See what I did there? But yeah,
Well, you are nothing if not consistent.
I'm nothing. Yeah, I'm not consistently bad at puns and phrases like that. But
We
yeah,
we love you for it.
Yeah, thank you. So does Mom. But that will be. We're going to get into talking about all the possibilities of who it can be, and there's some on there that are just kind of fun to talk about that I really don't think have any weight or merit. And then we'll talk about kind of like the pros and cons of why would it make sense that this person would be there? Why would it not make sense? That sort of thing. So we'll spend a lot of time really breaking that down in a lot more depth than we will on this show. So we are going to touch on it, but we'll get into all the tinfoil hat theories and all of that a little bit later. We still got to make those hats. You got to write that down somewhere on your show notes. Okay. Let's get into the episode itself. So this one opens up on Ord Mantell. Very refreshing to see it again. Like you, I was surprised, like, oh, cool, we're back here. Right? And I was thinking, hopefully we'll stay here and they're not just like in the harbor, the docking bay, ready to get out of Dodge. And it didn't. In fact, it starts with the, we get the exterior shot. We get that one patron walking down into the bar. And I put it in the show notes because like Sid's is supposed to be a bar and they say it's Sid's bar, but it feels more like a Dave and Buster's. Like there's lots of games in the background and like, you can see the hoop thing and all that stuff, but I don't know. It's really not a big deal, but nonetheless, Echo is in there. She's firing her bow that she just recently acquired. That poor lady almost loses her head as she comes in here. But again, and I'm hyper focusing on the word luck, but he says that she got 3 out of 12 shots, and he said that wasn't skill, that was luck. Echo says that to her, and that soldiers need to be consistent. So is there, again, anything here with, no? Okay. All right. We're moving on.
I mean, was it luck that she got the other 9 wrong? Like she missed the other 9?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Usually
It
luck,
just keeps coming out. Why do they keep saying luck?
No, I do get that point though. They do bring it up quite a bit. I think in this context, it almost seemed more normal though.
Yeah, it was more
Up,
innocent.
right?
No, I'm with you.
Yeah,
But
the other ones, yeah, there were some moments where you could probably stretch it and get there. This one was a little much, but you're right. I mean, there's definitely a trend here that 5 out of the 6 episodes they've mentioned luck, I believe.
luck. Yeah, and specifically to Omega. It was, you've seen the meme, right, where Leonardo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is sitting there with the beer and he's pointing at the screen because he sees himself up on the screen. That was me when that word luck came out. I was like, oh, right there it is. Again, mark it, number 6 or 5th
Nice.
reference.
Yep.
And now there's a Weequay and a Thorian. I don't know if we didn't get their names. I turned the subtitles on and did all that. Didn't get their names on this one, but I had them
Oh,
listed as Norm and Cliff because you've got Rhea Perlman in there as Sid. Um, but
hey,
yeah, it seems like they're kind of going to be main characters as well, like just bar characters. What did you think about them? Are they annoying you? Because you're
I
shaking your
can't.
head here.
No, no, I'm shaking my head because I want to call the Arthurian Alfonso because
What?
Robot Chicken. So the guy that does like Palpatine's hair, he's his barber, and he's all these other things. His
It's
name is,
Alfonso.
I
Yeah, I
think his
know
name
you're.
is Alfonso. So I
Yeah,
just want to call him Alfonso. I keep waiting to hear who was it, like Seth Green, or not Seth Green. Yeah, it was Seth Green. I think
yeah,
the
Seth
voice
Green.
for the other guy, and just to have him break. I don't want to do it because I break the internet probably, but yeah. Oh, it's such. I love Robot Chicken in Star Wars. It's fantastic. But I just want to keep calling him Alfonso. But yeah, they're there. I don't. That was a little. I mean, I guess they're the only two that she has bringing in any income. I can see why
Right.
she's turning to kind of on the grayer side of things for generating money. But
Yeah, if she had more people in her bar,
they don't seem to be buying anything.
they sure don't. They're just kind of hanging out, loitering half the time, which I
Right.
thought was cool too. Because like with the Thorians, I want to say I've seen they had one in Clone Wars, but that whole apparatus, that contraption that's kind of on the base of their neck, that's actually where their mouth is. So if you ever look for anybody that really wants to know or doesn't know, their mouth is like at the base of their neck, and they speak there. And they actually, man, like every time they talk, and they did it in Clone Wars too, so it's in Rebels as well. But if you watch that scene when they talk, you're so focused on the eyes, and there's a piece that's supposed to be like the nose that you think, oh, that's the mouth, but it's not. You got to look further back down the stalk there on the neck, and you can see the mouth, and they can animate the whole thing. But that little contraption is on there so that it translates for us whatever the Thorian's saying, because otherwise they sound like they're, I don't know, gargling or
Yeah,
flossing or
they're
something,
inaudible or something. Yeah, some growling type of
growling thing. Yeah.
electronic sound. Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, super creepy stuff there. So Omega's she's struggling with the bow. Yeah, this kind of plays up a little bit later, and then Sid comes in, and it's funny because I'm really liking her character. Like she's in command. She's not giving these guys. I think we said she was from upstate New York. She's giving these guys no options. She's telling them, hey, like she says, this is my briefing goggles. She's talking to Tech. She's already giving them funny names, which is always a good thing. And you can see in Tech's eyes, he's like taken back by the fact that this little, Trandoshan is talking to him that way. I mean, everybody else, no one talks to him probably that way because of his intelligence. But yeah, we get the mission, right. The mission is they got to go out to this separatist droid factory where they're decommissioning droids. It's out in Corellia, which I was like, oh, okay, cool. We're going to Corellia.
Didn't really get to see any of it, but
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we got to see the exterior shots, like the setting, like the what do they call those setting shots or
yeah, the establishing shots. Yeah.
establishing shots? Thank you. Sorry, we just had Josh on. He knows all this
Right.
lingo like that. But yeah, we get the establishing shots, which are very similar. Well, and they should be from Solo, right? I mean, there was almost they took a lot of the pages directly from what we saw in Solo Star Wars story. Same city too, I think, wasn't it?
Uh,
Coronet City.
yeah, I think actually, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where Solo was. And I was thinking, oh, we're going to see somebody here. But no, that didn't happen. And, but yeah, so they got to head out there. And so they want to retrieve a tactical droid head. And the idea here is because they have this tactical droid that has all these years of experience in fighting clones, and ergo, the Empire now has clones as their main force, a tactical droid should have some advantage or at least give you some insight into how to best attack the Empire. So we get we know out of the gate that whoever wants this is wanting to go up against the Empire. But what did you think about the mission? And I guess this whole the whole idea of how I'm curious as to how Sid's getting these missions, right? Like, what
Yeah.
does her network look like? And I don't know if we're going to get into that or the details of it, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessary, I guess, for us too, but I think she's getting it from somewhere, though. I mean, and again, this is a pretty high profile thing. It's not chasing down a pet rancor, right? This feels completely different. This is actually true mercenary type of mission stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, retrieval, and this is more bounty hunting, and but it makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, it clearly someone wants it. And you can start running through a list of people, especially when we run into Trace and Rafa. Clearly, they're working for someone as well. We find out. So who's actually most interested in this type of information? I mean, you know that a group like Saw's group might be very interested in this. We know we've got the fledgling rebellion side of things going on in the Senate, but they don't get their hands dirty. So there's probably a handful of others you could pockets of resistance maybe starting to form.
Yeah.
But yeah, then again, you have to wonder if it's for what purposes is it for? Is it for good or for nefarious purposes? So um, yeah, so yeah, we could
Well, we'll
debate.
speculate on that a little bit later because I think that's kind of at the heart of who it is.
Right,
We've got some clues that were kind of dropped in this episode. There weren't many, but there were some clues that were kind of dropped in this episode about who potentially it could be. And I think what you're talking about right there plays directly into it. The importance here is who would want to go up against the Empire, which kind of narrows your list, and I think it excludes a number of people out of the gate, which is good.
right.
But yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay.
Um, okay, so that's the mission, and and then Hunter's like, "Whoa, whoa, hold on a second. We never said we were going to be, your guys, or whatever." And
Right.
Sid said that she made the decision for them. Um, but I was curious as to why they were still there. I mean, you talked about it, and we see them there. Were they just kind of hanging out? I mean, they could have taken Omega and done, target practice anywhere. Really, they didn't have to do it inside a bar, which seems like the worst place to do it. But maybe that was like a darts thing that they were shooting. Either way,
Something like that.
yeah. Why were they still there? Like, why were they? Any thoughts as to why they were hanging around?
I think it's one of these things of they don't want Omega to be out in the open, right? They
Yeah.
want to they need to have some sort of shelter, and they know they can't be flying around the galaxy, so they're trying to get organized, and they're trying to, again, if they're going to work for, if they're going to work for her, uh, then they're going to have to be accessible to it.
Yeah.
And what was interesting though is that she just kind of comes in and runs the shots. I mean,
Yep.
you know, she just runs the conversation for him and says, "Well, yeah, you're working for me. Thanks for telling me. We've already established this. Can we get on with this now,
Hmm.
please?"
Yeah. Exactly.
So
But what about time too? Like I was again, these are all the things that I stress about and think about that are probably insignificant. But I wondered how much time had passed. You think it's hours, days,
I'm
a week?
guessing I'm guessing maybe a few days, maybe a week, something like that. Probably not a
Hmm.
whole lot of time. But she's still learning to shoot it. It sounds like this is one of her first lessons. So I imagine this is within a day or two of our last events.
Yeah. They're so yeah, she kind of says, "Hey, this is the best offer," which I think probably is. I mean, the alternative is they're going to go burn fuel and go
Right.
burn resources, run around the galaxy. Where here they could, they got a place to stay. It's not it's Corellia. It's like I wouldn't say it's the underground of Corellia, but based on the way the streets look, it's probably not wildly traversed by the Empire, so they can kind of keep their heads down, that kind of thing. But I would agree. But yeah, she said it doesn't really make a difference because I've already decided for you, and this is what you're going to do. And then out of nowhere, she reaches over, grabs the bow, like squeezes off 3 rounds on that bow, and then says lessons over. And she mentions that she's been releasing her bow too soon, which I thought was cool. Like this was another character. We've had a lot of these with Dave Filoni, where these characters come forward and they've got some experience with a weapon, and they don't explain it. And I think we're okay with them not explaining it. But I love the fact that she's got that because I start thinking, okay, well, if all this is fine for now, but at some point when the rubber hits the road and the Empire suddenly comes in because they figure out where these guys are, if this is truly where they're going to kind of be missioning out of, you got to think that at some point they set this up to show her as being a character that's going to be able to hold her own and hold the Empire off as they're invading. Or I mean, in my head, again, this is all the stuff I'm wondering if there's going to be a galactic empire that shows
Right.
up to try to capture them, and she decides to say otherwise.
Exactly. I mean, it's important to have people on your side that have skills, and so it makes sense. Though. I mean, got a she's a female Trandoshan at that, so I don't know how that works into how the males and the females are respected and regarded in that way. But she's had to take care of herself. She's not the biggest thing. She's quite a bit smaller than all the other Trandoshans we've ever been exposed to with Bosk, and who are
Hmm.
usually quite tall and lean, and she's like Rhea Perlman,
Yeah, she's a
little
bowling ball.
little short of the ground there.
Yep.
But so I can, yeah, she's got to be tough, and she's probably learned a lot. But it was pretty telling. She called her little noodles for arms, which was kind of funny.
That's right. She called them noodles. Yeah. Yeah, we've all been there. Some of us have gotten back to noodles for arms thanks to COVID, but that's another story. So then we get so from there we get into Corellia space. Havoc Marauder is now docked underneath this like cargo ship that's coming into the atmosphere, and of course that always conjures up memories of Empire Strikes Back and
Right.
flying away with the other garbage, that kind of thing. But it's funny because Echo says this old trick, and then Tech says it always works. So it sounds like they've been using these before. There's an episode. I want to say there's an episode, and there probably is because they did everything in the Clone Wars. But wasn't there an episode where they did the same tactic with Echo?
Pretty
I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's. I just when I saw that, I was like, okay, I know it's happened. I couldn't remember if it was Echo or not. But then I thought, well, if it is, then that would make sense for him to say this old trick. Like,
Mhm.
dude, we've been doing this for a while. Surely they're not gonna. They've caught on by now, um, but yeah, and then we get so from there, Omega asks about the tactical droid, and this is where Tech gets into the old explanation about with this, it would be invaluable to anybody that's going to go up against the Empire. Um, was this I don't remember the insides of, no pun intended. I don't remember the insides of the tactical droids, whether or not there was like a collective mind. You know what I mean? Like if it was one droid that went into battle, did that data get uploaded somewhere and then the next droids kind of learn from that? Because otherwise you would make the assumption that this one tactical droid that they were going after had been a veteran and had been through numerous battles without the convenience or the benefit of having the data from all the other tactical droids aggregated into them. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't remember if that was the case, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Again,
It
probably
may
still
have
the
been.
details here.
It may have been, but I definitely remember there was an episode of the Clone Wars where the one of those droids was like the best droid that was commander or
Oh, yes.
whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there does seem to be something special about them, but it wouldn't surprise me that they're part of some network and they gather and they share all that intelligence. Seems to make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I mean, they broadcast everything, of course. So how else would they get all the orders out to everybody? And then now they're just doing it. I mean, he speaks, I guess, but when they wire him, but at the same time, yeah. So I'm on board with that.
Yep.
Let's go with that.
So they definitely confirmed they're in Coronet City at this point, which again is where Solo was. Very familiar in terms of the way it looked. Yeah, there was nothing that was kind of in your face about it, but they sneak into the facility. But I had a question about why there were so many police droids. Like I didn't. Do you think there's like was it the threat? Did they know that the Empire? Well, no, because the Empire's those police droids are specific to like those are like Carillion
Yeah.
police
Right.
droids, right? So why would there? It just seemed like there was an excessive amount there, and they never explained it. Maybe it was just for the dramatic purpose at the very end, with the waves and waves of them coming in. But I don't know. Any thoughts there?
I think that was purely for dramaticism, but I think at the same time, it was curious where they were coming from, and they definitely weren't there for the facility because it was just a decommissioning factory,
Hmm.
which is basically a smelting shop, right?
Yeah,
They were just dropping everything into
chop shop
liquid hot lava, but yeah, or
magma. That's
magma.
what it was. Yeah.
Right. That was close. I'll get all my references one day. I'll learn from you. But yeah, I think it's just dramatic effect. But again, it created a lot of. I mean, it delivered on that too because you needed to have something where they were pinned and like, how are we going to get out of it? And good ideas and like what Echo was trying to do, and they still got to try to reset everything. And
Yeah.
it was a little bit interesting. Of course, I like. Well, we'll get there. We'll talk about the battle droids here in a minute.
Well, it was the tactics of the separatists, right? It was like, okay, we can't one on one take on the Jedi or the clones, but one on 1,000, we have a better chance, right? So it was like you just kind of have to overwhelm them and again use the term Zerg, Zerg them. That's the best way to really kind of get the upper hand against them because tactically, strategically, you're not going to do so any other way. Um, and then and I like the episode, but there was one part in there I was like, oh, really? It was the when they get into the facility and they realize the droids are kind of everywhere. So they're like, well, how are we going to get up there? And Tech says something about them having to wait for the blind spot. And so if you've ever played any like espionage video games like Metal Gear Solid, any of the games in those lines, you know there's a pattern. You know what I mean? Like you have to wait and watch, and you're like, oh, okay, I see. Whenever this goes here and that person goes there, that's when our opportunity to go in. But I just thought it was like, oh, that's very video game like that. They're waiting for that window of opportunity, that blind spot where they can suddenly get to where they need to go. But hey, you know what? It's probably we've all been raised on that culture at this point, so
Absolutely.
it's very relatable. They go up the ladder, and I'd forgotten that Wrecker was scared of heights. Like that was
Yeah,
wasn't it Clone Wars? Was it season 7 or was it that they established that?
I think so. Because I was thinking about it when he was going up there. It's like, okay, he's afraid of heights, but is his head also exacerbating some of that and making it worse? It's where that's, I don't know, giving him a harder time with it. Where he's not as afraid of heights, but he seems to be very, very bothered by it this time around.
Yeah. Well, and then I started thinking, okay, well maybe I'm conflating my A team knowledge because remember, BA. Here we go. Sorry, this is not what you tuned in for, but we've compared them to the A team, right? You've got these
Right.
ex-military people going on missions, but there was a BA Baracus, right? He was scared of being in the plane. That was Mr.
Yep.
T's character. And then I thought, okay, well maybe I'm conflating the A team with the Bad Batch. And I mean, if there's anybody that's done enough Bad Batch, it's you and I. But I could have sworn there was at least a reference of him being scared of heights, being able scared of jumping into planes and all that, but maybe not. He
Well,
definitely came up as surfaced here in this episode.
right when they were crash landing, I mean, he was freaking out over there, right? So
He said he was going to die.
yeah, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
all right.
he's just been altered this last time.
Yep. Hey, quickly, Keaton Haas. Hello, Cantina Cast. I've listened to many podcasts. First time live on YouTube. You guys are great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. That's awesome. I don't know if it was the time zone or the fact that the episode or what, but I'm glad everything lined up for you to help come on the air and join us live here. Yeah, he said, I think Wrecker said has a problem with gravity. Yeah.
Gravity tends to be a problem when you fall. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're heavier.
But
yeah.
but then he jumps like from 3 stories up.
That's true. He does, and saves the day. He has a little hero moment there towards the very end. Okay, so we get inside the facility, and this is like again, it was eye candy, right? Visually, tons of droids everywhere. You could see the depth of the facility. It was really expansive. You got all the the walkers that are, or the workers, sorry, that in there as well. That Rafa and Trace are dressed as a little bit later. It was a cool moment. Again, more writing credit here from Munoz when Wrecker grabs that one guy, puts him in the sleeper hold, goes nighty night, and he just passes out or whatever. So good stuff there. And then this is where you'd mentioned earlier, where like, so now that Crosshair is gone, of all people, why would you? I don't know the decisions. I mean, they're good, they're funny decisions, but of all people, you're going to put Wrecker up there as the lookout. But then I thought, why wouldn't it be like somebody like Tech? But then I guess it's all mission based, right? You need Tech to get into the thing. You need Echo to get into there. Hunter's kind of running point. So I mean, really, the only person left is going to be Omega or Wrecker.
Yeah, and Omega actually had a real job this time around.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, so that was nice to see. I think Stephanie had to tell me that. I was like, I don't think she did have a job, because I thought he was just you stay here and stay out of the way, but no, you stay here and look out and find the droid head. So she was kind of running eyes in the sky a bit too.
Yeah,
but a little bit closer to the action.
Yeah, they had her as kind of like the spotter. She was supposed to have her keep her eyes open for this one, and again, more convenience, but not nitpicking. We're nitpicking at this point, but yeah, there's only one tactical droid left, and it just so happens to be on the conveyor belt right in this moment. Right. Thankfully, before it goes into the lava,
and it's a different color.
But and it was a different color, stood out. All very easy.
I'm assuming they briefed her on what it looked like ahead of time, right?
Well, she had the little she had the hollow thing. Remember when she's sitting there?
That's
and
right.
she was asking questions about it. So she'd seen it at least, but that's all green. There's no color in that, or blue, whatever. And so they so the plan is they got to get in there, stop the belt after she identifies it. Right, they want to stop the belt from the conveyor belt from dumping that tactical droid into the magma. And we got to see the stun settings on the weapons. It's always cool when we see it. I mean, they've done it a lot in Clone Wars. They did it in Rebels.
It's a great sound effect too.
Yeah, but it's the sound effect, and it's just one of those things for anybody that's seen Star Wars, that knows anything about Star Wars. There was a long period of time before we saw that again. It was shown in A New Hope, and then it was forever before we saw another weapon that was set to stun. So I don't know. It stands out for me every time I see it. I'm like, oh, cool. They're using the stun setting on the blasters. Echo interfaces the computer system. That dude's got one job. It's just he's like an RT unit. He's an astromech. That's all he is. Just plug right in, get the data, get out of here.
Poor guy.
Um, and that's where, yeah, so Echo, that's where she finally spots a droid. And then Omega tries to run off to kind of stop the worker that swoops in and steals the head. And this kind of starts this whole chase sequence
Mhm.
between Omega and Rafa and Trace and everybody else at that point. But as soon as, I think it was Rafa that said something first, or was it Trace? That was Rafa.
Yeah.
I think she said something to Hunter. That voice, and I forget the actress's name, was very, like, it's prominent. Like, he definitely or right immediately recognized the voice and went, "Oh my gosh, what in the world are they doing back here?" But what, anyways, your thoughts, I guess, on, we can kind of lump that whole chase thing, that whole back and forth and everything up until the point where Omega kind of falls into the pit there and they end up saving her. But there's some great stuff going on here, in terms of, again, the blocking. And then I know you want to talk about the whole interaction between Hunter and Rafa, because that was really good stuff. Like, they were really playing off of each other, watching each other's backs, that whole thing.
Right, yeah, I mean, it was really cool that it was Rafa and Omega first with
Hmm.
that had the confrontation, right, and I think it was even she recognized so Trace has already got the head, right, and Rafa's confronting, but Omega pulls the bow out, and it's actually got her, frozen, and she's like, "Okay, kid, calm down," but she's not able to hold it for very long. She starts to see her taking off, so it was really good dialogue though between them of, wanting to talk about it, but she just again, it was really another good piece of writing though with Omega because when she takes the bow away from her, knocks it away from her, and all of a sudden now the droids are coming after them. So Rafa's having she goes, "Get a weapon," and Omega was just like, "I had one," and
Right, yeah.
so it was just
Um,
the delivery from that for Omega is just absolutely on point. Like every single week, it seems like. But there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, it's a lot of back and forth, and this is where I think you were saying as well the the amount of activity going on in this episode within just a really fairly small warehouse type of space, and to be able to see all this, and we see these moments of it too, where I'm on the bottom level and they're looking up and they see people running across, and they've got droids coming on all different places, and we get to really see a cool side of Hunter though too. I mean, we always know he's very heroic in a lot of ways, but this was really like a episode for him to shine and the kind of the playing off between him and Rafa as it went through the sequence and covering each other and saving each other's backs and actually worked quite well together. It was a little bit surprising, but it was really a joy to watch. It was a lot of fun.
yeah. Yeah, I would. Yeah, same thing. I loved the whole sequence. It's very complex in terms of how it was laid out and how it plays out. I'm gonna keep talking about the blocking that went into it, and just the writing itself. Yeah, she had some other cute moments in there where she's like, "I'm being pursuit," right?
Right.
And of all people, this little child is saying that she's in pursuit. But yeah, that was great. There's a moment in there that I got, my feelings were like elevated because them tossing this head around in a factory like this, for anybody that doesn't know, and you probably don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyways. In Switch War, there's a game called Hut Ball, and
Yes.
there's like this. You have a ball, and like you're in like these factory settings kind of thing, and it's two teams against each other, and the whole object is kind of like football, where you got to run the ball, this hut ball, out into the other side, and you get points for making it into the end zone, kind of thing. But all the while, you're like going multi-dimensional through all these different levels, and there's lava and there's things to jump around. And it was very similar to what was going on here. And I don't think they had any inspiration from it, but
Mhm.
if you know what I'm talking about, that one was for you. It did feel like a game of hut ball as they were kind of tossing his head around. But eventually, this all leads up until where Omega falls into the lava, and we get that kind of turning point where was it Rafa?
Race.
Hunter. Yeah,
Oh
sorry,
yeah.
sorry. Hunter comes out there first to try to help her, um, and no, it was Trace. Sorry, you're right. Trace tries
Yeah.
to tell her, hey, grab something, let me grab it. She's
Right.
trying to lift her out of the lava or the magma. And that's where Hunter comes in and kind of helps pull her out. But that was kind of like the big turning point, right? Because at that point they realized, and there were other moments too that we've already skipped over where they were going back and forth and talking, and they helped each other. I mean, there was even a moment in there where Rafa saved Hunter's life. Like, there was somebody
Right.
that came up behind him, she shot him, and then he immediately returns the favor and shoots somebody behind her, and they were just kind of pinned down this entire time until we get the saving moment from Mr.
I,
Rucker, but
I still don't like you. And Hunter's response is, I'm used to it.
yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, and I think what's important to note about Trace is Trace was leaving the building. She was already on the way out. She had the exit.
Hmm.
She was ready, and then she heard Omega calling out. And again, this kind of goes back to the same type of thing that we had with her and Ahsoka's responses, and that she is has a big heart and isn't going. She's going to make the right decision, even when she needs to like think of herself and think of her sister. She's going to make the right decision that fits with her, with her morals and ethics and things like that.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is, and they didn't really go here, but and I'm glad you brought up the whole introduction to Trace and Rafa. But if you think about it from their perspective, I mean, they probably heard or saw themselves as Omega, right? This child that's in the middle of a war and doesn't have her parent. I mean, I would assume they wouldn't think those guys were her parents, but she's kind of a victim of what's happened now, and they've been through all of that. They were a victim of the war that was brewing between the Separatists and the Jedi, and so that was probably a primary reason for her to be like conscious of it and cognizant of it, and hear her screaming or hear her yelling for help and feel like, okay, I can't just walk away from this child, right? I
Right.
can't walk away from this little girl that needs my help. As I didn't really have that option, or didn't have that for me available for me, or that kind of thing. So I think all of that was kind of playing in there, and certainly plays out a little bit later too.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, so this is the part, and again, I like the episode, but I was really confused, and maybe you can help clarify this for me. But they had to restart the conveyor, but they had to restart the power again. And I went back and watched the episode again. I'm thinking, what happened here? Like, did I miss something? And maybe I did, but I
So
didn't really understand why they had to restart everything.
well, he had to cut it, I think, in order. So they had to, when they sealed it off, they had to cut the power, but then they had to go and get Wrecker up there to go and, I guess, reset it all in order to get power so they could go back and plan an escape route, because they were effectively trapped in there.
Yeah.
But when he did that, it was like, switching the fuse back, like in a fuse box, I guess. Is kind of what
Hmm.
that's about the only way I had to get my arms around it, was that it was like a big fuse, just a stick fuse.
Yeah.
It was like
Samuel Jackson in Jurassic Park, where you got to
not,
get the
not
power
quite
back onto the part.
right, yeah, but it reminded me more of like Minecraft, where you just have a little switch.
Oh, you meant like visually, like physically, there was a switch.
Right, yeah, it looked like the
Pull it.
matchstick, yeah, but oops,
Whatever works.
Bumping into R2D2 behind me here.
Yeah. All right. So okay. Well, and it's really not important, because at the end of the day, this was just a mechanism to get Wrecker to do a jump or do something that would cause him to bump his head. And then we get this moment where I was like, okay, and again, we called a number of things. So, that's what we do here, right? We just say 8 things. And then when that one comes true, we're like, hey, we called it. We told you it was going to happen.
Right.
Don't worry about the other 7 things that didn't come true.
Doesn't matter if they telegraphed it or not. We got it right.
That's true as well. But I mean, I think it was 2 things, right? It was like, there was certainly speculation about whether or not his head he was having a problem with the inhibitor chip. And I think that definitely, well, it happened, right? I'm talking more about the fact that I got the sense that he was going to revert into this whole clone mentality, like the Order 66 thing, right? Like what Crosshair went through, because he starts uttering the lines, "Good soldiers follow orders," and at one point you hear, or at least in the subtitles, yeah, or you could hear it, but it's actually Crosshair that's saying that good soldiers follow orders.
Right.
So it could be one of 2 things: one, it was just a direct influence in some way, or it's a reminder of it, or 2, it's actually malfunctioning, and it's gonna churn Wrecker into this Hulk kind of experience, where we talked about a couple episodes ago, where he's gonna be on a loose cannon. They've got to figure a way to kind of mitigate him, which the most obvious way would be to go in and get that chip out of there, which could leads hopefully to them doing it for other clones, themselves included. But
Right.
thoughts there on what was kind of going on?
Yeah, I mean, and we see it later in the episode too, at the very end, where, I mean, hopefully these guys are seeing something, because at the end, he's like sitting in the chair. He's still got the look on his face that's not quite right, and he's still rubbing his head. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Rafa is the one, or I can't remember whoever touched his shoulder. Even I couldn't remember which one it was, but again, it's just a wonder if anybody else is noticing. And guys are not the most observant creatures on any planet, so. But you would think that within their squad, that Hunter, if his ability, or his what makes him special is his ability to track and read things, and that. Like, why would he not start to see what's going on with Wrecker in that in any kind of regard? And
Mm.
so, but and I guess it's lucky that Wrecker got shot effectively, so that he was a bit incapacitated and couldn't do anything. But again, I think the question though is, even if he does switch over and the chip is activated and he's actually it's happening,
Yeah.
is anybody actually in any real danger at this point, or is it just going to be they need to go follow orders, they need to go check back in and that type of thing, or is it just okay?
Well, I would say if the chip's activated, then you've got potentially Wrecker attacking. It's like the Rex situation where he was with Ahsoka and he was trying to fight it and all that. I mean, I think that's probably the scenario that they're going after, because that would be like, I mean, you got three guys and three men and a baby
Right.
that are trying to take down Wrecker at that point. But in my head canon already has that happening, and those three not being able to take him down. But then it's Omega. That Omega comes forward and has a really like soft moment of like connecting with him and getting through to him and saying, it's not your fault, kind of thing, reiterating those
Right.
lines, talking about the room, right? Something that really kind of pulls Adam emotionally, that kind of pops him out of it. And so that they can either get him to a safe place, lock him down, lock him up or whatever, and then work on getting the chip and all that suppressed or removed or whatever, or disabled or whatever they've got to do. But in my head, I'm hoping that it is going to be Omega, because they've been setting up this whole relationship, I think, between Omega and Wrecker, and it being kind of like, I mean,
Right.
he's obviously very protective of her already. So if there's anybody that's going to be able to kind of get to him emotionally or get to his heart, it's going to be somebody like her.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with you entirely. I think that's going to be the most likely scenario.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the other thing too is, I mean, he was down, so I don't know that. I mean, outside of the visual cues of, hey, he's still scratching his head, he's still got a problem. I don't know that Hunter or anybody else know what happened there. They were calling him, he wasn't coming through. So I think if it's going to come to light, it's either they're going to try to really dig into why his head's still hurting, or he's going to come forward and say, hey, I had a moment where I heard Crosshair's voice, and they're going to be, at that point, be tipped off that, hey, something's not right here. But we'll see how how that plays out here in the next episode.
Right.
Yeah. So we had this is where Hunter and Rafa get together. They're fighting, make a good team. This is where Trace stops and turns to help free Omega. All of that's kind of happening. I think we've already touched on that. Sorry about that. And then Hunter's lasso, we kind of skipped over that part. But let's get to where Wrecker comes in. Like, he finally snaps out of it. He jumps down, what is it, 30 feet or whatever, 3 flights of
Right.
stairs. And he has that little heroic moment where he starts taking out all of the different droids.
He's back to his old self.
Yeah, he really is kind of back to himself, old self at that point. Um, and I'm sorry, we jumped over let's talk about the dialogue, because I said it earlier, and I said it that one night, and I posted something on Twitter right as soon as it was done. But that whole line of, Trace and Rafa are going back and forth, and she's talking about, hey, they need a diversion, and she says, "Is there an echo in here?" And he just very casually walks up and goes, "Yes." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm Echo." And okay. Like I said, this was very like Airplane or Naked Gun worthy in terms of the writing and the comedy. But it's been a long time, honestly, where I've sincerely and genuinely laughed out loud at something that happened in Star Wars. Because I mean, Star Wars is funny, but there aren't that many moments, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, that really make me chuckle out loud in the way that this did. And I don't know if it was because it was completely unexpected given what was happening at the time. But then just if you look at the visuals, like Trace is like, she's kind of staring off into space, like, I just said that. You know what I mean? Like, and this is her sister, and she knows, like, she's just repeating what I just said. But it's just Echo's dry delivery of yes, like, you called, that's why I'm here, kind of thing. But what did you think about that?
No, it was great. Again, just another one of these perfect moments that they keep striking. Like, just somehow it just works because it's really super campy. I mean, it's super campy. It's like you said, straight out of Airplane, straight out of
Right.
Family Guy type of stuff.
Yeah,
That they've been
exactly.
doing Simpsons type of things, and but it was just so perfect, and the delivery was just so dry and to the point, and she's still lost. Like, what? What are
Yeah.
okay? Hi,
Yep.
type of thing.
Yeah.
But why did he even? I mean, it was more like he came over just to talk about, like to talk to her,
Yeah.
like he thought like something was really important was about to happen.
Yeah.
So,
In the middle of this, like they're pinned down with nowhere to
right.
get out. And he's like, yes. It was good stuff. I really, really enjoyed that whole piece. And so then from here, they come up with this plan of taking the tactical droid's head. And, she says, oh, we need a diversion. We need an army. We've got one. They talk about reactivating all these droids that are kind of hanging as well. So it all kind of makes sense. And then Tech does his Star Wars magic where he, reprograms the head. And then he's got the data rod, which I didn't understand what the data rod was. But now I figured it was probably what do you call those?
It's like a USB stick,
It's a
like a jump
USB
drive.
stick. Well, I was thinking more of not
Oh,
necessarily a MacGuffin, but you know what I
like
mean? Like it just
Doctor Who's pen or whatever it is.
sure. It's any one of those items, but it was a way for them to like you had to figure out a way like how do we get the data from the tactical droid at the end of the episode over to Trace and Rafa so they can go and take it right to move the story along, move that part of it along. And so they're like, I don't know, we'll just come up with we'll call it a data stick, and that data stick has to be in there. And now we've got a way to get the data off, even though the head's no longer around.
Right.
Because I think it does get destroyed, it gets shot or something.
Yep.
Right. So all hope is lost, kind of thing. But oh no, we had the data stick, so it's fine. I mean, it's if you get caught up in the science of Star Wars, you're in the wrong industry, or you're in the wrong
They have
entertainment.
books for it though, but you should probably just go read the books.
They do have plenty of books for that. So
I don't know if they're canon anymore.
yeah, and they're not. Omega calls for help, and that's when Wrecker finally has his moment. He drops down, starts taking out a bunch of them, and this is where Rafa says, "I like him." Anything there? I saw people already they've already shipped them. They've already talked about how this is going to be a relationship that gets nurtured here a little bit later. But my gut tells me they're going to be back. But what do you think there? I mean, was it just the
Well, and that's why I wanted to remember who touched Wrecker's shoulder, like on the ship
that's
afterwards.
where you were going? I'm like, were you really?
Yeah, I knew you were going this route because then, yeah, you like all the relationshipy stuff, but no, yes, I'm trying to remember. I'm racking my brain. Hopefully, maybe someone on the live stream would tell us like who touched which one was it? Was it Trace or Rafa that acknowledged Wrecker when he was sitting on the ship at the end of the episode?
Yeah,
maybe that will illuminate our ways
signal.
of thinking here. Yeah, it'll tell us which way we should be going.
All right. Well, I don't know if it'll happen or not. It doesn't have to, and if it does, it's fine either way. I think Hunter and her are a better ship, but hey, that's just me. And then we get the battle droids. Like I never thought I'd be rooting for the battle droids, but yet here we are again. Dave Filoni turning things on our head and making us like people that we shouldn't like, or making us see people in different ways than we thought we would. But there they were.
It was interesting though that the battle droids we see on the racks usually only had one arm, but all of a sudden all the ones that were fighting all had two.
Two arms. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that last batch that just came in, they were all in good order.
Right.
They were working their way up.
Did we win the battle droid?
Yeah, did we win? That's right. They're all coming up online, and
Orders are orders.
yeah, it was good to hear the voices again. Who is it that does those?
Is it Matthew Wood?
Yeah, it's Matthew Wood. Yep.
Yeah.
He does those, and I think Grievous as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it was good to hear Matthew Wood's voice again, which was cool. And then so then Trace gets on the line there, or yeah, so they get out of there after the diversion. Omega steps up and she starts firing off. I mean, she's got like a look of confidence in her, and I don't know. I couldn't tell did she take out any droids?
I think so.
Because I want to say the shot showed her just from the side, kind of close up, and
this was the only part that I don't know. Like you said, bothering me is not the right way of putting it. But I think this is the only thing. It was like all of a sudden she's strong enough to just rail them off without really much effort. It was all just tuning out distractions. I thought the problem was that she wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because she makes that comment about it's all about tuning out the distractions, but that wasn't the root cause of her being able to hit stuff. Or maybe it was.
It was one of the problems, right?
Sure.
The guys were betting on her.
Bar guys in the back there,
right.
Cliff and let's call them Cliff and Norm.
Right. Cliff and Alfonso. Yeah, but yeah, in the bar she was just struggling to even pull it back, but now she's got the technique down. So that was the only part that I was like, okay, that's a little heavy-handed this time, but we'll let it pass this time.
Maybe she got lucky.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding.
All right, Domino.
It could be. You never know. All right, so they call R7, which I was like, wait, what? R7? Because last I remember, that thing got blown to bits. Although it was Rex. Who was it that somebody pulled all the parts together in season 7 after it had been blown up? I think it was Rex. I don't remember. Somebody salvaged it, and I thought, okay, wonder. I guess I don't know why they were doing that, but now this again, it's all like he had it in his head. He had to. There was no reason for him to take those parts for R7. So the fact that
Right.
somebody put it together was all intentional, which is kind of cool. Sounds like they had a plan here. They jump into the shuttle to escape, and I thought, wait a minute, what about the Havoc Marauder? And of course,
Right.
they come back, and that's fine. They land there. Um, and then this is where Hunter, like you said, Wrecker is holding his head. Right, he's got definitely got a problem there, and again, I don't remember who it was that touched him, but Rafa, she challenges Hunter at this point for not knowing the purpose of acquiring the droids. Like, he's like, they were on a mission to get the droid head or the
Right.
tactical droid head, and he's like, I don't know, and that really bothers her, which I think plays into the speculation a little bit later,
Right.
because it sounds like they have clearly know why they're getting they went after the tactical droid head. So that tells me that they're not just like like the Mando, where you don't ask questions about a bounty. Like,
Right.
no, it sounds like they had some insight into what was going on. Did you pick up on that as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like it's more of a bleeding heart type of thing too. So we were given the impression, at least at this point, that they're working for the good guys.
Yep.
And yeah, she grills him like, how do you not know what the intention of a military grade battle droid, or tactical droid is? You know, how can you not question what it's going to be used for at this stage? And she also starts grilling them over, why they're basically, like we've heard this before, like clone deserters, why they're on the not, why are they fighting the Empire or not fighting for the Empire? And Hunter's telling her that, well, we're not all like that. We're not all doing stuff. You probably have the quote there with you, but
Yeah, this is
uh,
where we're different.
yeah, we're different. Yeah. And so when he gives her the data rod, she actually acknowledges that, okay, maybe you are different, and she didn't know what it was. And he kind of did the right thing. Clearly she had gotten to him before they part ways on the Havoc Marauder and all that. So it was a kind of a touching moment where they make I don't know what he's going to say to Sid when he gets back,
Hmm.
because that's not going to go real well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they've got to explain why they didn't get the head. But I think one of the other things too, and this is I have this as a clue as to who it may be a little bit later. Was she says that when Hunter says, "Hey, we're different," she makes a comment of, "I've heard that before," but she says
Right.
it sarcastically, and you can take this one of two ways, right? If you're kind of a cynic, then you can kind of draw a conclusion that whoever has hired them to get the tactical droid head said they were a good person or different, and they've now turned out to be or turning out to be different than that, like they really aren't any different in their minds, right? Another way you could interpret that line is harmlessly in saying that I've heard that before, meaning that when they met Ahsoka, right?
Yeah.
Ahsoka said, "I'm not a Jedi like them. I'm different," and they didn't trust her at first, and right, we had that whole arc, and at the very end, they were like the best of buds at this point, right? I mean, they've got her R2 unit or R7, so we know that there's a connection to Ahsoka now at some point. At least I'm making an assumption. But you could take it that way too, where she was just kind of reflecting on the relationship that they had with Ahsoka and how that initially started and how it ended, being okay. We've heard that before, and it's kind of a weird that you would say that kind of thing. But any thoughts? Or
Very,
you have a different opinion?
no, very much the latter. I thought it was exactly a very specific reference back to Ahsoka, because she was never an Ahsoka fan. Period. Trace was
Hmm.
the one that said, give her,
That's true.
give her a chance." And then when it turns out Ahsoka was a Jedi, Rafa jumped all over it, and Trace. It hurt Trace too, though, but Trace got over it because she's a very forgiving person. But yeah, Rafa doesn't. I think she's kind of one of those one and done people, and I think that's just not necessarily who she is, but it's what she's had to be growing up. I mean, you don't have anybody to take care of you. The only person who's going to take care of you is yourself, and she has to take care of her sister too. So trusting other people and believing what they tell you doesn't come easy.
Yeah. There's a Hunter also utters that line about how things were much easier when they were just soldiers, and
Yeah.
we probably beat that one to death, right? I mean, it's very clean in terms of where their mission is, where their loyalty lies. They're now having to kind of operate in this kind of nebulous gray space of who's good and who's bad, and it's just him kind of having this existential moment in terms of where he's at
Right.
with everything going on. But she says that in return, she says, "Take it from me. In the end, we all choose sides." And I thought
Yeah.
about that, and I don't. It's really hard. Like I don't know that I have a good theory as to why she would say that. I mean, there's obvious things there, but then my head goes to, okay, so what is she trying to say? Did they choose the wrong side? Right? Is that why? Again, is this a clue as to where they are? I mean, I think all signs point to they want this tactical droid to truly fend off the Empire. And what you would do with this beyond that, I don't know, unless it's just a third party that really doesn't care for the rebellion or the Empire, but they want to take down the rebellion so they can go and become in power. I mean, maybe it's like a Jabba or something like that. But I just don't know why she would throw that line out there if it wasn't going to lead to something or mean something later on. And if so, what do you think
Yeah.
that would be?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways. So back in season 1 of Clone Wars, there was a I forgot the name of the episode, but the little the quote that they used to do, they always did.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
was, in a war, eventually you have to choose a side, is what it said. I think it was like episode 15 or 18, something like that. And so I think some of it's a callback to that, but also we got a lot of this in Rogue One, actually, where you can't sit on the sidelines. You're in the middle of this war, and you can't Cassian was very critical of Jen, right? That he's been in the fight, of course, since he was 6, and she's just
Yeah, and
been
suddenly
aloof
the
about it.
rebellion's
Yeah, real to you, right? Yeah, it's just I think it's more of these things, and we've seen it from Saw in a variety of ways too, right? And so how do you? It seems very it just seems very pointed, and it sounds like there's a lot of those types of influences. I like that there were some callbacks as well, but then it also kind of goes into that speculation side of who could it be, and is she learning some of that stuff from someone, or is this just a you know again we'll talk a little about here in a second, but it's just those were interesting little callbacks. So we always keep hearing. I think we talked about with Josh earlier tonight the Master Apprentice Qui Gon talking about you have the choice. We've
Mhm.
seen this in the High Republic, right? With you have to choose the light every single day because it is the light.
Mhm.
So you just can't sit on the sidelines when there's a war. There's a war, and Saw said it to us earlier in the season that the war just the war didn't actually end. It just moved into a different war.
Yep.
So it's really no different. It's just the sides look like they've shifted perspectives a bit.
Right. Yeah, I think of DJ also, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
kind of what his
Killjoy. Yeah,
message was where doesn't matter. Both sides are, you can choose to fight with either side. They're both going to have their skeletons and their demons and all that. But
yeah. I guess he's the one. I guess he's the true one that really never did kind of pick a side at all.
right.
I mean, I guess you could always say like a Boba Fett likely didn't either. Uh, he just kind of did whatever he needed to do at whatever time. But so I mean, there's pockets of it, but I think with where these guys are at, it makes a lot of sense. Like there is they're neck deep in this. The clones can't escape it. Clone Force 99 can't escape this war. It will find them at some point, just like it'll find Rex and Gregor and all the others. Just like it found Kanan and so on and so forth. Right?
Yeah.
It's at some point you got to decide if you're going to get involved, and usually you kind of do.
Yep. All right. Well, let's get to the big scene there at the very end, which wasn't very long. And very interesting the way number one, the way the shot was framed. I mean, for obvious reasons, they wanted to only show kind of the shoulder, um, as well as the way the very end of it, the way they just kind of hold and linger on Rafa's face there at the end was interesting. Um, Trace never makes a move. Like she doesn't even move. And again, I don't know if it was because they didn't want to pull, pull the what do they call it? Pull the focus, pull the perspective
Mhm.
by having her turn around or anything. But maybe she's preoccupied with flying the ship, but the ship's not moving.
Right.
Okay, so it's just still, but she's eyes forward, not moving whatsoever. So I thought, okay, is there something there in that she's not comfortable turning around and looking at them? But this whole scene starts with patch him through R7, so confirmation that it is a male or a him of some sort. It says we acquired the tactical droid data from Corellia, and we had help. It was a squad of rogue clones, and I know where to find them. Thought you might want to know, and that line of "thought you might want to know" came across very. I don't know. I wouldn't say what's the word. It came across kind of cold, or kind of
Yeah,
like
like a little bit of, well, like you couldn't trust her, right? It was just, yeah, it was something
you couldn't
suspicious.
trust them, like suspicious, right? Or
Yeah, or like, yeah, that yeah, that she was maybe had something up her sleeve, or is that, she's willing to sell them out. I mean, I watched it a few times though, and you could really interpret it a bunch of different ways. You can look to say, no, I don't see any malice on her face or look. I guess that if you're the pessimist, then you're going to go and see that she is, you know, hiding something, or she's got the little eyebrow raised or something like that. That
yeah.
is telling that she is interested in selling them out or something to that effect.
Yeah, I took it though as though, hey, you told us you maybe put us on alert that there were clones out there and that we should keep our eyes open. And I'm telling you now, even though I don't like it, even though I don't agree with what you're going to do or the reason why you want to know that there's clones out there, but I'm letting you know that there were some, and you can choose to do whatever you want with that data, but don't involve us.
Right.
That's how I read it. And again, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I think if from that context, I think it does kind of narrow down the scope of a number of people, and it excludes, I think, somebody that's probably the primary person that I think a lot of folks are kind of talking about it being, who I think it more than likely is. But so we'll get into all of the other the questions, or we'll get into all the people on who it is and who it isn't. But I thought, at least for this episode, because I don't want to not talk about it. I mean, it is the elephant in the room. Who do you who do you think it is? Like, it just, without a whole lot of context here, just if you had to pick somebody as kind of the front runner for whose shoulder that was,
Right.
and if you had to shoulder the speculation, Jonesy, who would you pick?
Shoulder the burden of sharing my ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think you said it yourself when she's feeding back that information about a set of rogue clones, and everything seems to point towards Saw Gerrera, I think.
Mm,
Right? I mean, they seem like I mean, them teaming up with a band of freedom fighters, and and again, if, like you said, if that person said, "Hey, there might be these people out there," and they found them, they're having this conversation, it makes a lot of sense, and that's all connected. What I liked about how they framed this, though, is that it reminds you of like Ahsoka and Rebels, even Ahsoka in Clone Wars Season 7, where like she's in a hologram or something, and you can't really see her until she turns around. And so it reminded me a little bit of like the whole fulcrum aspect of things
yeah.
that they played up really hard. But so, yeah, so I'm kind of on board with Saw right now. That's probably the super popular pick. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm probably in the Saul Guerrero camp, but here's and I've got issues with, well, no, I said I wouldn't talk about that. We're going to talk about that on Patreon. Like, I want to talk about why and why not on some of these characters. And I'm really torn because I can make arguments for both, and I think that's kind of the whole point. And I'm glad, because it's got, this is what we want on a show that's not released all in one big bang. You'd better, I shouldn't say you'd better, like, that sounds very demanding, but it's always nice to have a week to kind of digest and speculate and toss around these ideas. And I mean, that's what Star Wars has always been about, for me, right?
Right.
And so we have that opportunity here with this one. And I think I could say, hey, it's Saul Guerrero because of this, and it's Bail Organa because of this, and it's Mace Windu because of this, right? I mean, and some of these are kind of really far fetched. I get it, but that's the whole point of it. So all that said, I'm going to fall on the camp of somebody like a Saul Guerrero, but I have issues with that one. The other one that is kind of at the front, the top for me also is Bail Organa, which I have problems with as well, because, if, again, given the context of how that line was delivered about, hey, I thought you'd want to know, why would they not show him, or why would he be upset, or why would it be delivered that way? It would have been more optimistic or something, right? Or I don't know. Maybe not. Again, we can get into all the different arguments for and against here in a little bit, but it was enough though that it got everybody talking. It was a good way to end the episode,
It was.
and the way it lingered on her, the way it just lingered on her, and then went to black and went to credits at that point, was like, whoa, like, pretty powerful in terms of how they did that. So,
Right.
but yeah, I guess final thoughts on the episode before we get out of here and get into our Patreon stuff.
Yeah, no, episode was really good. Again, a good cliffhanger, which is what you always are interested like during the season. It doesn't even have to be a mid-season cliffhanger or anything like that. And again, do you have a new player in the mix? But I mean, I'm okay with Trace and Rafa showing back up. I think they're going to show back up in this season. It seems to make a lot of sense that they would. We usually talk about these types of things, but we didn't really bring it up tonight. But I think they'll likely come back up at least once or twice. They're good characters, so I'd be all right with that. And again, it's all Wrecker right now. What's going on with Wrecker, and what are we going to do to how are we going to resolve this, or how is it actually going to come about? It seems it's going to have to come out soon, though, right? I mean, we
Right.
seem to be picking up steam that they're doing this more regularly now.
Yep, I would agree. And I did enjoy the episode. Again, I'll just kind of summarize it. I enjoyed all the aspects of it. And I really liked the way it ended. The Martez sisters, never had a problem with them in the beginning, so I really liked them in this episode. Probably more than I did in that other one. I think it validates a lot of what we said about Dave Filoni, and that how he does put these things in there. And it's, and there's been a lot of criticism. Sorry, I'm going to get on a soapbox, and I'll make it a small soapbox. But there's so much criticism that's been thrown at the Clone Wars the last couple seasons about, oh, they did this, they did that. I know I saw a lot of discourse today about, hey, why did they waste all the 4 episodes or whatever they did in season 7 on the Martez sisters? And they should have just never done that. They should have done something else because that was more relevant and all that. And you know what? It's like, you got to understand something about Dave Filoni. He does have a plan. He's got all these stories in his head, like Lucas had all these stories in his head. And unfortunately, if you were paying attention, the Clone Wars didn't have like they didn't really stick the landing there in the last couple of seasons. I mean, that was difficult. There was episodes that were being talked about, stuff that was getting canceled. There was the big turnover. I mean, all that factors in and plays into what Filoni and team and really Lucasfilm were trying to do. And so they were kind of having to just kind of roll with the punches with a lot of this stuff. And so while some of it doesn't feel like it's been one cohesive story, and some of it feels like filler, and some of it feels like they're telling stories that don't need to be told, you got to take it from the context of there was a plan, and he's just trying to make it all kind of fit, given the circumstances that he has. And now he's got this opportunity to weave in, like in my head, I wonder how much of these, like the Bad Batch and the Martez sisters and all that, they were all, season 8 and season 9 of the Clone Wars. And there were other pieces that were going to connect them all together. But because that ended, now he's got to shift all of that storytelling and all those connections over into this new series. And so he's kind of having to, reverse engineer or kind of work his way back into a lot of this stuff. And so I can get it. I get it. It may kind of feel like it's put off. It puts you off a little bit because it doesn't feel like some of these stories are relevant or should be relevant. But in the end, I think they all are, just in Dave's mind. And that's what we're trying to get out right now.
Well, I don't even think it has to all necessarily be some big master plan in this case. I think it's sometimes you have characters that fit a certain criteria and that they have a reason to be in these types of situations. And Trace and Rafa are a prime example of this.
Yeah.
They're scavengers taking care of themselves, so looking for opportunities. They don't like the climate that's going on with the Empire, clearly. So maybe something has happened there, but there's someone that's already established, and you can reuse them and bring them in, and it's still relevant and it still works. And I think that's what happens here. I think that's what Filoni and even George Lucas were always real interested in. And Filoni, I think, has been really, really good at this because he's had a huge canvas to do this with. Of, like you said, bringing things in so you feel connected still. This should very much feel connected to Clone Wars, right? It's like another season of Clone Wars, right? It's just shifted the focus away from Obi-Wan and Anakin and the Regs. And so I think these are good things. I don't see them as negatives that they're bringing some of these characters in, as long as it fits this, what the story they want to tell. And I think it did a fine job of that. I think 2 characters working on their own. Would you rather have 2 that you're rather somewhat familiar with, or 2 brand ones you have no history on and you got to do exposition on that, or you have to throw it in there, or I guess you don't need them at all, but again, you need some tension. I thought the writing really helped that out. It really helped bring the parties together and made it an interesting, I don't want to call it a battle between them, but just a tug of war, a bit of a struggle between them. You just get that counterpoint, that contention. So I'm okay with things like this. I thought this actually worked rather well. And usually I'm one of those people of, like, do we do too many callbacks? Do we have been to the same place too many times? But I think they did this one really well. This worked.
Yeah, no, you're right. You are very much like that, or you'll call it out, at least. That's what I meant. Right?
If it gets excessive, right?
Yeah,
and that's fair. If it starts being excessive, then call it out. That's fine. But this one I don't think is. I mean, these were, a couple of brand new characters, and it makes sense for them to bring them forward.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for everybody that joined us on the live show tonight. We're going to record the Patreon content right after this.
Do we want to show them the new video just for fun?
We can do that.
These
We've
are
got
the
a
things you're
Patreon.
missing if you're not Patreon.
Yeah, it's this intro that we worked on. Here, I'll roll it. It's like 20 seconds long. So if you're on the live feed, you can, you'll definitely see it. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll probably just edit this out because it's
Probably.
there's not a lot.
Go over to YouTube afterwards and you can check it out.
Yeah, I will edit this out. So I'll make a note to get rid of it so you're not having to listen to that. Here we go. Wow, that was rocking there at the very end.
It's
so yeah,
fun.
that was cool.
These things are fun to do.
And that was all Jonesy, by the way. So congratulations on that. You did an amazing job on that.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that voice though, man. I don't know who that was, but
I don't know.
That was
yeah.
Get that guy signed up somewhere as a voice actor.
Should give him a few podcasts. See how many actually does.
All right. We'll let you know, fill you in that. Okay, so yeah, again, if you're coming to after this, we'll be doing Patreon, and the way that's going to break down is I've got 7 clues that were kind of dropped throughout the episode that we're gonna. I think they're clues. They may not be, but 7 clues, and then we'll talk about a whole list of characters. Some of these are kind of out there, outlandish, but it should be a fun little jaunt onto speculation. So, all right, let's get out of here. Any final words before we go?
No, let's do it. Can't wait for episode 7.
Yeah, episode 7 next week. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. And don't forget, we got the From a Certain Point of View coming out on Tuesday as well. So listen to Josh's take on Luke's surrender. We had a great time talking about Return of the Jedi in that 3-minute scene that we somehow turned into like a 50-minute episode. But hey, that's what we do, right?
That's right. Why we're here.
That's why we're here. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.